In the late 19th century, a tiny terrorist with a taste for the finer things in life brought the French wine industry to its knees. The Phylloxera aphid, an insignificant insect with delusions of grandeur, decided to wage war on the vineyards of France, unleashing a viticultural nuclear winter that would reshape the global wine landscape forever. Picture, if you will, the horror on the faces of French vintners as they watched their precious vines wither and die, victims of an enemy they couldn't even see without a magnifying glass. The aphids, clearly unimpressed by centuries of French winemaking tradition, munched their way through the roots of vines with the enthusiasm of a sommelier at an all-you-can-drink wine tasting. As the devastation spread, French winemakers found themselves in the throes of an existential crisis. Their entire industry, the pride of a nation, was being decimated by a bug smaller than a grape seed. The irony was not lost on them. Their beloved vines, symbols of French cultural superiority, were being saved by grafting them onto resistant American rootstock. It was as if the Statue of Liberty had suddenly developed a southern drawl and a penchant for hamburgers. This botanical disaster forced an unprecedented level of international cooperation in the wine world. French vintners, swallowing their pride along with their last bottles of pre-blight wine, grudgingly accepted help from their American counterparts. The result was a viticultural revolution that would change the face of winemaking forever, proving that even the tiniest of creatures can have a butterfly effect on global industry. But the Great French Wine Blight wasn't the only bizarre conflict to rock the foundations of European culture. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, along came the Cod Wars. These weren't your typical wars with guns and tanks, oh no. These were battles fought with fishing nets and ramming boats, a sort of aquatic bumper cars with higher stakes. The United Kingdom and Iceland, two nations separated by a mere stretch of water, found themselves embroiled in a series of confrontations that would make even the most ardent fish enthusiast question their life choices. Picture, if you will, burly fishermen squaring off on the high seas, brandishing cod like medieval knights with particularly slippery swords. The British, with their stiff upper lips quivering in indignation, faced off against the Icelanders, who defended their fishing grounds with the ferocity of Vikings protecting their longships. The confrontations escalated from stern looks and strongly worded letters to full-blown maritime mayhem. Boats rammed each other with the enthusiasm of drunken whales, while fishermen wielded net-cutting tools like pirate cutlasses. It was less master and commander, and more Monty Python does naval warfare. But beneath the surface absurdity lay a deadly serious issue. For these nations, fishing rights were as vital as wine was to the French. Cod wasn't just a fish, it was a way of life, a cornerstone of national identity, and the foundation of entire economies. The fervor with which they defended their right to pull slimy, googly-eyed creatures from the depths of the ocean rivaled the passion of French vintners protecting their grapes. The Cod Wars proved that nations would go to extraordinary lengths to protect their interests, even if those interests involved creatures that spent their lives swimming in circles and occasionally getting caught in nets. It was a testament to human stubbornness, a quality that would rear its head again in an even more absurd conflict. Just when you thought international disputes couldn't get any more ridiculous, along came the Pig War. This conflict between the United States and British North America, now Canada, in 1859 managed to elevate porcine-related incidents to a matter of national security. It all started when an American farmer, clearly not a fan of bacon, shot a British pig that was rooting in his garden. This single porcine casualty almost led to a full-scale war, proving that sometimes all it takes to bring two nations to the brink of conflict is one very unlucky pig. The swine in question, now forever immortalized as the porcine Helen of Troy, had no idea it was about to become the spark that would ignite an international incident. The American farmer, clearly not a fan of unexpected garden renovations, took matters into his own hands with a well-aimed shot. Little did he know that his actions would soon have diplomats and military leaders on both sides of the border scratching their heads and wondering if they were really about to go to war over a pig. As tensions escalated, both nations mobilized their forces. Ships were dispatched, troops were rallied, and stern looks were exchanged across the disputed San Juan Islands. It was as if the entire world had suddenly gone mad, with military strategists poring over maps and trying to figure out the best way to avenge a pig. The absurdity of the situation was not lost on the soldiers, who found themselves facing off over this porcine dispute. One can only imagine the conversations in the camps. "So, Private, what are you fighting for?" "Freedom, sir, democracy, and a pig, apparently." Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed before anyone could fire a shot in anger. The two nations, realizing that perhaps going to war over a garden-rooting swine might not be the best use of their resources, agreed to settle the matter through arbitration. It was a rare moment of sanity in a conflict that had teetered on the edge of lunacy. The pig war stands as a testament to humanity's remarkable ability to turn minor incidents into potential catastrophes. From wine-destroying aphids to cod-obsessed nations, and now to a single ill-fated pig, it seemed that no issue was too small to be blown wildly out of proportion. But just when you thought human behavior couldn't get any stranger, along came a Canadian lawyer with an idea that would make the pig war look positively sensible by comparison. Charles Vance Miller, a man with a peculiar sense of humor and an even more peculiar approach to estate planning, was about to set in motion a series of events that would give new meaning to the phrase baby boom. In 1926, Miller shuffled off this mortal coil, leaving behind a will that would have made even the most eccentric of testators raise an eyebrow. Among its various clauses was one that would spark a reproductive race unlike any the world had ever seen. The clause stated that a portion of his estate would go to the Toronto woman, who gave birth to the most children in the decade following his death. It was as if he had decided to turn human reproduction into a competitive sport, complete with a cash prize. The Great Stork Derby, as it came to be known, was perhaps the most productive reading of a will in history. Women across Toronto suddenly found themselves in a race to populate the city, their wombs transformed into biological racetracks. For a decade, the city buzzed with the sound of crying babies and the rustle of diapers. Maternity wards became the new front lines of competition, with each birth announcement treated like a victory bulletin. Millar, from beyond the grave, had managed to turn the miracle of life into a bizarre contest of quantity over quality. The Derby reached fever pitch as the deadline approached. Women who had never considered large families found themselves contemplating just one more child for the chance at the prize. It was as if the entire city had been gripped by a collective bout of baby fever, with Miller's will as the thermometer. In the end, 4 women tied for the prize, each having given birth to 9 children during the specified decade. The courtroom where the winners were announced must have resembled a particularly noisy nursery, with lawyers trying to make themselves heard over the wails of multiple infants. The Great Stork Derby stands as a testament to humanity's ability to turn even the most sacred aspects of life into a competition. From wine-destroying aphids to cod-obsessed nations, from garden-rooting pigs to baby-making marathons, it seemed that no aspect of human existence was safe from our compulsion to compete. But just when Toronto was settling back into its normal reproductive patterns, another bizarre event was about to unfold on the other side of the continent. In Los Angeles, the military was about to engage in a battle against an enemy that may or may not have existed. It all began one February night in 1942, when the city's sky lit up with more than just the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. The U.S. military, apparently bored with the lack of action on the home front, decided to stage the most expensive fireworks display in wartime history. Over 1,400 anti-aircraft shells were fired at, well, something. Or nothing. No one was quite sure. The Battle of Los Angeles, as it came to be known, was less of a battle, and more of a one-sided shouting match with the sky. Picture, if you will, hardened military men squinting into the darkness, fingers twitching on triggers, ready to defend the land of the free from any threat, real or imagined. As dawn broke, the only casualties appeared to be the city's collective nerves and a few unfortunate windows that had the audacity to be in the way of falling shrapnel. No aircraft wreckage was found, no little green men were captured, and no Japanese invasion force was discovered hiding behind the Hollywood sign. The incident left the military with egg on its face and conspiracy theorists with enough material to fuel decades of wild speculation. Was it a weather balloon that had the audacity to float into restricted airspace? Perhaps it was a squadron of Japanese planes that had mastered the art of invisibility? Or maybe, just maybe, it was an alien reconnaissance mission that decided Earth wasn't quite ready for first contact after witnessing our trigger-happy response to a bit of celestial curiosity. The Battle of Los Angeles stands as a testament to humanity's remarkable ability to shoot first and ask questions later, even when there's nothing apparent to shoot at. It's as if the entire city collectively decided to take a page from Don Quixote's book, tilting at windmills in the sky. This aerial non-event fits perfectly into our parade of peculiar historical moments, from aphids waging war on wine to nations squabbling over cod, from pigs sparking international incidents to Toronto women engaged in reproductive races. It seems that human history is less a march of progress and more a stumbling conga line of absurdity. But just when you thought the pinnacle of perplexing events had been reached, history had another ace up its sleeve. As the dust settled in Los Angeles and the city returned to its usual business of manufacturing dreams and scandals, halfway across the world, a mystery was about to unfold that would make the Battle of Los Angeles look like a model of clarity and reason. In 1948, on a sunny beach in Adelaide, Australia, a man was found dead. This, in itself, was not particularly unusual. People die on beaches all the time, usually from excessive sunburn or the shock of seeing themselves in a bathing suit for the first time that season. But this man was different. He was well-dressed, carrying no identification, and had a scrap of paper in his pocket with the words "Tamam Shud" printed on it. Little did anyone know that this seemingly innocuous discovery would lead to one of the most baffling mysteries in Australian history. The Tamam Shud case, or as it's more stylishly known, the mystery of the Somerton Man. It was as if Agatha Christie had decided to write a real-life whodunit, but forgot to include the solution. The unidentified man, found lounging on the beach as if he were merely taking a particularly long nap, was dressed to the nines. Clearly, he believed in looking his best, even in death. But his impeccable fashion sense was overshadowed by the cryptic message found in his pocket. Tamam Shud, Persian for, "It is ended." It was as if the universe had decided to play a cosmic joke, ending this man's life with a literal ending. The plot thickened when investigators discovered that the scrap of paper had been torn from a rare copy of The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, because apparently regular books weren't mysterious enough for our well-dressed corpse. This led to a wild goose chase that would make the Cod Wars look like a leisurely fishing trip. As detectives scratched their heads and the public's imagination ran wild, theories began to sprout like mushrooms after rain. Was he a spy? A time traveler? A particularly dedicated method actor who had taken his role a bit too far? The possibilities were as endless as they were improbable. The case became a veritable smorgasbord of bizarre elements. There was a suitcase full of items with their labels removed, as if the man had been preparing for the world's most enigmatic vacation. Then there was the coded message found in the book from which the Tamam Shud paper had been torn, a sequence of letters that looked like the result of someone falling asleep on a typewriter. As the investigation dragged on, it became clear that the Somerton man was determined to keep his secrets, even in death. It was as if he had orchestrated the perfect mystery, leaving behind just enough clues to drive everyone mad with curiosity, but not enough to actually solve anything. The Tamam Shud case stands as a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the unexplained. From wine-destroying aphids to cod-obsessed nations, from pigs sparking international incidents to Toronto women engaged in reproductive races, from imaginary aerial battles to cryptic beach corpses, it seems that human history is less a march of progress and more a stumbling conga line of absurdity. But just when you thought the pinnacle of perplexing events had been reached, the annals of history had yet another ace up its sleeve. As investigators in Australia continued to bang their heads against the wall of the Tamam Shud mystery, across the Pacific, the CIA was about to embark on a project that would make all previous absurdities look positively mundane. In the 1960s, at the height of the Cold War, when spies lurked around every corner and paranoia was the flavor of the month, someone at the CIA had a brilliant idea. Why not turn cats into spies? After all, what could possibly go wrong with surgically implanting microphones and antennae into felines and sending them to eavesdrop on the Soviets? This stroke of genius, known as Operation Acoustic Kitty, was about to become the most elaborate cat video never made. Picture, if you will, a group of serious-faced CIA operatives huddled around a conference table, nodding sagely as someone presents a PowerPoint slide featuring a cat wearing a tiny fedora and holding a miniature martini glass. "Gentlemen," the presenter intones, "I give you the future of espionage." The plan was simple. Take a cat, turn its body into a walking radio transmitter, and then somehow convince it to wander over to some Soviet officials and eavesdrop on their conversations. Because if there's one thing cats are known for, it's their unwavering obedience and willingness to follow directions. The CIA, apparently having exhausted all other options, and possibly their common sense, decided to forge ahead with this feline-focused plan. They spent millions of dollars and countless hours surgically implanting microphones, batteries, and antennae into the bodies of unsuspecting cats. One can only imagine the conversations in the veterinary operating room. Scalpel. Scalpel. Microphone. Wait, what? After months of preparation, it was time for the first field test. The target, two men sitting on a park bench outside the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. The operative, one very confused cat. As the furry spy was released from its transport vehicle, the assembled agents held their breath, waiting for the moment when feline cunning would strike a blow for democracy. What happened next would go down in the annals of espionage history as a moment of pure, unadulterated farce. The cat, displaying a shocking lack of patriotism, decided that crossing the street to reach its target was simply too much effort. Instead, it wandered into traffic and was promptly hit by a taxi. And thus ended Operation Acoustic Kitty, not with a bang, but with a meow cut tragically short. The CIA, realizing that perhaps cats were not the ideal covert operatives, quietly shelved the project. One can almost hear the disappointed sighs echoing through the halls of Langley as agents realized they'd have to rely on human spies after all. This catastrophic failure of feline espionage serves as a fitting bookend to our journey through the annals of historical absurdity, from aphids waging war on wine to nations squabbling over cod, from pigs sparking international incidents to Toronto women engaged in reproductive races, from imaginary aerial battles to cryptic beach corpses, and now to cats failing spectacularly at espionage. It seems that human history is less a march of progress and more a stumbling conga line of absurdity. But perhaps the most bizarre event of all, the one that truly encapsulates the depths of human weirdness, occurred long before any of these modern mishaps. In 897 AD, Pope Stephen VI, clearly not content with the usual papal duties, decided to put his predecessor on trial. The only slight hitch in this plan was that Pope Formosus had been dead for months. Undeterred by such trivial matters as the defendant's pulse or lack thereof, Stephen had Formosus's corpse exhumed, dressed in papal robes, and propped up on a throne in the papal court. This macabre puppet show, known as the Cadaver Synod, saw the deceased pope questioned about his alleged crimes, with a deacon crouching behind the corpse to provide answers. As we reflect on this parade of peculiarity, from the Cadaver Synod to Operation Acoustic Kitty, we're left to wonder, what do these bizarre historical events reveal about human nature? Perhaps they show that no matter the era, no matter the advancement of civilization, humans will always find new and inventive ways to be utterly, gloriously absurd. And in that absurdity, we find our shared humanity, our capacity for both ingenuity and idiocy, our ability to turn even the most serious of endeavors into farce.